Welcome to the Alphagenix Podcast, where every week we talk to incredible guests from around the world of biohacking, well-being, men's health, and more. Here's your host, co-founder of Alphagenix, Ross Tompkins.
Well, I'm delighted to welcome today's guest, Amy Stuttle, the founder of Victory Men's Health Clinic from all the way over in the US. Welcome, Amy.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. Been really looking forward to our conversation. You've got, I think, 3 of the most incredible men's health clinics I've ever seen online. They just look beautiful. I want to go and hang out there.
Thanks. I'll take that compliment. That was our goal, is to build a brand and a clinic that men felt comfortable going to. So the aesthetics was an important piece of the puzzle for us.
Yeah, well, I absolutely think you nailed it. And I think that's a good approach as well, because those men typically don't go to the clinic easily. So having somewhere that's easy on the eye and somewhere that you want to go to, I think is a really clever move.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, we have a great designer, and I told her the vision of the man cave feel and luxury upscale, and she ran with it and she hit the ball out of the park, and all of our clinics look the exact same. And if people can see video, my office here, which I have a podcast as well, this is where I record my podcast. The background here looks just like our clinics do.
Brilliant. A luxury man cave. What a great description.
What more could you ask for?
Yeah, exactly. So how did you end up in this space? What was the idea behind Victory?
Yeah, I had a few things kind of happening at the same time in my life that ended up creating Victory Men's Health. One, my husband took an over-the-counter supplement that was a testosterone booster that gave him liver failure. And he was hospitalized for several months. He got really sick. His eyes were the color of a banana. He was super embarrassed. He couldn't believe that he took something that caused this. And it was a very eye-opening experience for us. He's an educated consumer, or he should have been. He runs a medical device company at the executive level himself. He works for a brain and spine implant company. So he was super embarrassed that he kind of fell into this, taking this supplement and believing what the bottle said and taking it. And through further investigation, we learned that the product came over from China and was packaged in Smirnoff, Georgia, in a gentleman's garage. And then he sold it to a guy that you can't even make it up. His like handle on his email was I'm a pimpdaddysupplement.com, who came up with these labels, the labels that were false, come to find out, and then sold them to a local supplement store here. So he didn't buy these online or Amazon or anything. This was walk into the store at a local supplement shop here in town that he had bought other things from, took this supplement for approximately 45 days and ended up in liver failure. So when we end up at the hepatologist over at Barnes, which is a big hospital system in our area, the hepatologist was like, I see this all the time. I'm like, you see this all the time? And he's like, I see supplement-induced liver failure on a regular basis. I was like, whoa. So it was just really eye-opening, the regulation issue that we have around supplements. Sure, there's some good manufacturing practices that are in place that supplement companies should be doing, but it's very easy to put a supplement on the market and go through no regulation. It's very different than bringing a pharmaceutical to market, which I guess I understand partially because that's very expensive to do, but there should be, in my opinion, a little bit better regulation about some of these things that are ending up on store shelves. So I had that happening. He eventually ended up healing. His liver healed, and he is now back 100% healthy. But around that same time, I went to a leadership conference in Las Vegas that a gentleman by the name of Tony La Russa, he was St. Louis Cardinals baseball manager for years. And he puts on this event where he has leaders from business come and speak, and legends, which are professional athletes, on stage. And I remember watching Walter Robb, who was the CEO of Whole Foods, and the CEO of Starbucks, Howard Schultz at the time, do this panel together. And, they both came from very low income upbringings, and they built these amazing companies. And I remember thinking, like, I can do this. I at the time I owned a gym and I was in medical sales, and I was, had this thought about why did my husband not want to go to the doctor? Why didn't he, if he thought he had low testosterone, why didn't he go get help through a medical practice? So all this is kind of floating around in my mind. I watch them speak. I get home, or I fly home from Las Vegas, and that night I wrote my business plan out on that flight home. It was about a 3-hour flight, and I presented it to my husband. I was like, hey, what do you think if I open a men's health clinic? I have this idea. We try to break down some of these stereotypes that are associated with testosterone. Like, hence here you are. You didn't want to go see a doctor. So there's obviously a need for it in this market. The other clinics that were in our market felt very non-medical based, very focused on erectile dysfunction and not focused around overall health. And 8 years ago, it all came together, and I created Victory Men's Health.
Amazing. Great story. I'm a pimp daddy supplement.com.
Yes.
Should have been a bit of a warning sign to the supplement shop.
Right. And it's like, unfortunately, the responsibility all fell on the supplement shop, but you're right. He should have done his due diligence on what type of supplements he was bringing into his store. And this ended up going to trial. And what's interesting is that they did try to recreate the label. Luckily, we had saved that last bottle that he took, because they were 2 30-day bottles, and he had that second bottle that he was on and didn't throw it away. And on the bottles that they presented in court, they were like, oh, it's not safe for the liver, this, that, and the other. Well, on the bottle he actually had, it said that it was safe and it was protective to the liver, and all of these, literally the exact opposite claims on this bottle. And basically it ended up having an anabolic steroid in it that wasn't listed on the ingredient list. So he took an oral anabolic and he didn't know it. That's what ended up happening. Yeah.
That's an incredible story. Did your husband, when he decided to buy these supplements from the shop, so at that point he must have been feeling like he perhaps was suffering with low testosterone, some of the symptoms?
Yeah. And he was a cop back in the day. So I feel like police officers in general just kind of have, or at least the group of guys that he worked with, this mentality of like taking care of themselves. I need to be big, strong stature. And that's how he's always been. So I think he's kind of always looking for a competitive edge, always wanting to be the best, always want to be the strongest. And he's not like this big bodybuilder, but he's in very good shape. And so I think he sees this. Oh, look, I can build muscle, lose fat. That seems like the supplement for me versus just going to a doctor. But yeah, he wasn't sleeping well. He didn't feel like he was getting the most of his workouts. He's coming off of that police officer mentality and ends up falling into the trap and taking that supplement.
Yeah. So did he talk to you about how he felt first? Did he say, "Oh, I'm feeling a little flat. I'm thinking of taking this supplement"?
No, and I remember him taking the supplement because he took other like protein powders and stuff like that. And I always just remember being annoyed. I'm like, why are you taking that? Why are you taking that? Go see a doctor. Like, what are you doing? What's in that? And the gym that I owned was a Pilates bar, yoga. So we just naturally come from the mindset of a more like natural, like, what are the ingredients? Is there GMOs in that? It's just a different mindset a lot of times than what you're seeing in your traditional gym setting. And so I was always annoyed with him because he wouldn't look at the ingredients or what additives were in it. Are there any food coloring dyes, et cetera, et cetera. And he would always just push it off like, oh, yeah, I should go see a doctor, or, oh, help me set that up, or, oh, remember that clinic we looked at, all they cared about is erectile dysfunction. So it just got pushed off until, something like this happened.
Yeah. Why do you think us guys are worse than our female counterparts at seeking help?
Why is that? That's a question for you, right? I mean, women just traditionally are not like this, and we typically make most of the household decisions as well. But I think maybe men, they just want to feel masculine. They don't want to admit to having a problem. They feel like they can handle it themselves. Maybe don't want to commit the time or the energy to doing it. They have this like, I'll just fight through it mentality, or, oh, it's just part of aging. You know, everybody deals with this, suck it up. So I think it's a little bit of that kind of ego playing into it, where they just feel like they're going to get through it on their own and figure it out without wanting to go see a doctor.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's quite a complex question, isn't it? There's so many elements, I think, that come into it.
Yes.
Masculinity, you touched on there. That's a really fascinating subject. We could talk about that for hours, I'm sure. You know, what is the role of a man in a relationship? What should they bring to the table? Is it strength and protection and all of these things? In which case, is it weakness to ask for help? So it's fascinating, isn't it? And then I guess you go millennia back and you've got these, you know, big divisions, perhaps when men were the hunter-gatherers, they were off, hunting for dinosaurs, bashing them over the head, and they probably didn't talk a lot because they didn't want to scare them away. But the ladies were perhaps back at home looking after the little ones, chatting amongst each other to kind of make a family and a community. So I think the media are very quick to say men just need to talk, but actually I think this is a deep-rooted societal thing that's going to take a long time to change. If indeed, do we want to change? How much do we want to change it?
Right. Yeah. No, I totally agree. And you mentioned the aesthetics when we first opened the podcast. Part of that aesthetics for me was I wanted to build a brand that people were proud to be associated with, that men wanted to talk about, where this wasn't a closeted subject, and where people didn't automatically associate erectile dysfunction and testosterone together, because the reality is you can have one without the other. So really trying to break down that stigma and creating a brand that people were happy to tell their friends about, happy to tell another dude about. And in turn, that would just help more men, and more men would actually come in and see us.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've taken TRT for 10 years now and had many of the symptoms, thankfully not ED at the beginning, but I still didn't talk about it for 8 years because it felt somehow kind of emasculating. It was like, wow, I had to take something extra to make me a man. And it just was off the books. We didn't talk about it.
Yes.
And it's only been for the last 2 years where I've been far more comfortable and open, and we started Alphagenix. So yeah, I think differentiating the two, I think, is important, breaks down one barrier, so it makes it easier for men to open up and talk. And then having a luxury cave makes it even easier.
Yes. Yeah. And, women are the exact opposite. I feel like they talk about menopause and hot flashes and the hormones they're on. And if they fix it, they're telling all their friends, where the men are more likely to keep that close to the vest and maybe not share it. So it's just very interesting to see between the two sexes, how they'll share their hormone experience with others.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually spoke to a general practitioner, physician here in the UK just at the weekend, and she was saying, how easy it was to prescribe for the menopause. It was all symptom based, and no blood work. And in the same breath, she said that basically andropause didn't exist. It was men who were seeking attention, or who had just done a lot of steroids when they were younger.
Oh, like, wow.
Like, surely logic says if one gender can have hormone issues, surely the other can as well.
Wow.
But it was so polar opposites. She was deadly serious. Like,
wow.
Doesn't exist.
That's unfortunate.
But I mean, I'm not quite sure what it's like over in the US, but here in the UK, there are so few doctors who actually understand what the andropause is. I think you guys are a decade ahead of us.
Yes, I would agree. I think there's more than when we started, right? We opened about 7-8 years ago, and there's definitely more clinics opening up. So it's definitely caught on. But yeah, in just traditional medicine, traditional primary care setting, they're not well versed on hormones. I think they've gotten a little bit better in some of the things that they were taught in school, which, by the way, they didn't have much hormone training in school, but that the little they had wasn't accurate. So the primary care setting is not the best setting to optimize your hormones. You know, here in the US, there's a lot of insurance barriers that people face if they choose to optimize their hormones in a primary care setting. And a lot of times it's not done right, and no fault to the primary care doctor, but they just have a lot of other things going on that they're treating. This is not what they specialize in, when this is all we do all day long. Thousands of men. We do a ton of continuing education. We go to 4 or 5 different continuing educations every single year. And we just don't go to the same ones either. We want to hear what everybody's saying, all these leading experts in the field are saying, so that we can match up our clinical experience and then what we're learning in these continuing education courses. And that way we can give our patients the absolute best care.
There's a longevity conference coming up in Vegas, isn't there?
Yes, we go to that every year.
You're going to that one. That looks really good. Someone only told me about it recently, and I was like, a bit too short notice to get there.
Yeah, they have a big floor there with a lot of different vendors. So I really like the A4M for the floor. I think is the best part about it. So that's where I try to find, you know, new things to onboard or meet new experts, new labs, all those types of things. That's what I use that conference for. So we go every year.
Wow. Yep. Well, maybe I'll see you there next year.
Yes, for sure. That's the one to go to. They have several all over the States, but A4M Las Vegas is the biggest show that they put on.
Brilliant. Well, I'll definitely do that. And you mentioned something interesting before, a couple of things. One, you said you've got a lot of clinics opening up over there. And you mentioned something else about, I think you used the word science, maybe, because you are very evidence-based, aren't you? And I think there is a problem with this cookie cutter solution. Are you seeing that in the States?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We see a lot of clinics. I'm trying to be politically correct here on how I word this, so I don't insult anybody. But we see it feels almost like a money grab, right? That they went from being experts in cracking somebody's back and doing their pain to now they're experts in injecting PRP into joints. They're expert in hormones. They're now experts in weight loss and semaglutide. They're experts in Botox. And it just gets really messy, in my opinion. It's like, I always tell my staff, so they'll laugh if they listen to us, it's people chasing the shiny object. Like, I watch these people do these money grabs, and that's just not who we are. We stay in our lane. We specialize what we specialize in. Sure, could I do, quote, Brotox, the Botox for men, and pick up some extra cash? Yes, we could. Do I want to? No, I have no interest in doing that. So we just stick to what we're good at, stick to what we're trained in. Oh, you see it with the hair loss as well. People doing the hair treatments in the clinic. That's another thing that reps always try to get me to do, or I see other clinics jumping on board with. It's like, that is not what we do. That's not what we've been trained in. That's not what we specialize in. And we would rather keep our reputation and do what we do really well versus trying to pick up a couple $1,000s here and there. And all that I feel like that does, honestly, is muddy the water. And if I was a consumer, a patient, client, whatever you want to call it, I want to go somewhere that this is all they do and they specialize in it. And I don't feel like I'm trying to be sold 16 million other things along the way. So we definitely are seeing that. I'm seeing a lot of clinics switch from managing pain to now managing hormones. There's a certain specialty here in the US that it's definitely an area that they've transitioned their practices over to doing this.
So are you talking about chiropractors?
I did not say that.
So it's interesting though, because in the UK, you have to be a physician to be in this industry.
So you do here too. So they have to have medical directors to be able to prescribe. Where I think it gets a little messy is that chiropractors go by doctor, okay, and they wear their white coat in and their stethoscope, and they go in and they are presenting to the patient as they are the doctor prescribing, and they're not. And I think that is confusing. And I think there needs to be more transparency to the consumer that while you might call him or her doctor, they are not actually the ones able to prescribe a controlled substance to you. There has to be a medical director overseeing that.
Wow. That doesn't sound particularly legal.
Well, I guess if they have, I don't know what to say about it. I guess if they have a medical director, it's fine. But
correct, yeah.
But I just, from the patient's perspective, I feel like there should be utmost transparency on that too. And our doctor would love to get on here and talk about that, because he sees it a lot. Somebody will come in, oh, Dr. So-and-so prescribed this to me. And it's like, well, he's not a DO or an MD actually. So yeah, this is a topic that gets him pretty fired up.
Yeah, I can imagine. So what other services do you offer which fit nicely with the TRT that you do? Because I think on your clinic page I saw a couple of things. Is it red light therapy on there?
Yeah, we recently just dipped our toe into red light. So our main services are hormones. Okay. Obviously, we do vitamin deficiencies and vitamin IV drips. We do weight loss, semaglutide. I'm assuming you have that over in the UK, the Ozempic. So we do that. And we do the erectile dysfunction treatments, whether that be wave therapy, P-shot, or PDE5s like Viagra, Cialis, Levitra. Those are kind of our core. I've recently been kicking around a concept, kind of like a biohacking type space, where I do cryo, red light, cold plunge, some of that. So I've dipped my toe into that by buying a red light therapy bed to kind of just gauge what our patients' interests are in doing that. And we also do VIP testing, which includes food sensitivity testing. We tech heavy metal, gut health, a few other things, the Grail cancer screening, a little bit more elevated testing. It comes with an additional cost. Those labs are very expensive to do. We're not marking up. That's just what they cost to do from the laboratory. So those are our offerings.
Yeah, I love it, because you've got kind of hormone optimization, longevity medicine, and then biohacking. They're all sort of colliding, aren't they? And in the middle, you've just got this incredible opportunity to make a man the best version of himself.
Yeah, because it's a total package, right? You can't just give somebody testosterone and think it's going to completely change their life. Now, every once in a while it does, right? I mean, sometimes that's all it takes. And they drop a ton of weight and their A1C goes back to where it should be, et cetera, et cetera. And it's the kickstart to the motivation to want to make a change. But you have to change other areas. And sometimes it's the testosterone that gives you that motivation to make changes in all those areas. But you need to look at diet and lifestyle and sleep and all of these other things to get you to the best overall health and longevity that you can possibly have. It can't be just siloed into one thing. But, testosterone or hormones do kind of start at the peak, I feel like, and trickle everything down to give that person that motivation or that drive or that energy or whatever it may be to take them to want to do the next steps. So it's amazing how many lives that it changes. Honestly, the success stories we could talk about for days, and obviously you experience it in your clinic too, but it's really cool to see when a man leaves a review or writes you a nice email and is like, wow, like changed my life and my family thanks you.
Yeah, it is incredible, isn't it, when you get that feedback?
Yes.
Because as you just touched on there, it's not just the man's life that you can change, but he's a more present and a better father.
Yes.
A better husband, a better business person or colleague or friend. It bleeds over into everything.
Yes. And if you want to get, the man to go to the doctor, this is what we should be telling them. You got to put your ego aside or whatever it is that's holding you back, because at the end of the day, it's your family and friends are the reason that you need to show up and take care of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we say something very similar, which is, testosterone can be transformational, but it's not magic. Like you can't take this and still sit on the sofa and eat pizza and kind of expect to have a huge change. As you say, maybe every now and again you do, but on the whole, you have to put that time into diet, exercise, sleep, nutrition, supplementation, or all of those things. What do you think then? Because obviously you've been doing this a lot longer than we have, 8 years, which is amazing. What do you think is the main driver that eventually makes a man come and seek help? Is it libido? Is it ED? Is it weight gain? What's the one thing, if you had to distill it down?
Probably the number one thing that they put is energy and sleep, I would say, is what gets people through the door. Now, we advertise our symptoms through radio, television. So guys are hearing these symptoms over and over, and they're sitting there, I think, thinking, well, I have that. Have I gained weight in my midsection? Yes, I have. Do I not sleep well anymore? No, don't sleep. Am I motivated to work out when I get home from work? Nope. Do I want to sit on the couch and watch football? Yes. Do I go through fast food restaurants versus cooking at home? Yes. So now all of a sudden they're hearing it and they're checking it off, and they're like, start to think to themselves, well, maybe this isn't normal. Maybe this isn't what I should be okay with. Maybe I can go back to feeling good, or, from this day forward, feel better than I've ever felt in my life. So, but I think probably the most common thing that people are checking on the intake form is probably energy. I'm not the provider, so I'm not in there seeing it all, but we obviously have meetings and talk about all this stuff. And I know that's one of the biggest things that we see to get people to get in here.
Absolutely. It's that feeling you can't quite put your finger on it. Something's not right. Pretty sure you're not supposed to feel this way. Yeah. And then you see an advert perhaps that, I've got that.
Yeah, I have that.
Tick.
And people really underestimate the sleep. I mean, that is a big area. We wish we had more control over helping people, get steered the right direction on sleep. I think my husband had a big issue sleeping, and definitely when he started the testosterone, his sleep was so much better. And then he started peptides, and then it got even better from there. But for the men that still aren't sleeping well, that subset of men that don't feel that relief from testosterone, getting into sleep studies and tracking your sleep, using an Oura ring or Fitbit or whatever it might be to track your sleep, so that you recognize that it's something that needs to be addressed, whether, it's from the mattress to the sheets to some other hormone to melatonin to a CPAP. I know those people don't like those, or a mouth guard, whatever it is. Sleep is so important. It has to be addressed. It cannot be ignored. That's one thing that for the men listening, to be like, if you're not sleeping well, you should not be okay with it. It needs to be, or even blue blocking glasses, to wear those before bed to see if that can increase your deep sleep. That's a trick that I use. I sleep relatively well. I track it on this Oura ring that I'm wearing, but I'm guilty, probably just as anybody is looking at the phone or the TV approaching bedtime. So blocking out that light, so your brain knows it needs to be ready to sleep. You should see my deep sleep score whenever I'm wearing those glasses. I mean, I almost get an hour more deep sleep on the nights that I make a conscious effort to block out that light leading up to bedtime. It's crazy. So, and they're cheap. You could get on $50 on Amazon and get these. I use the Dave Asprey brand. I don't know if you're familiar with him in the UK. Yeah. He's got a big podcast, longevity podcast. So he does have a really good brand of red light blocking glasses, and those are what I wear. Oh, see, you got the blue light.
My blue blockers. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think they're Dave Asprey's brand, but blue blocker.
Yes, and those are simple biohacks that we can be doing throughout the day. I mean, our eyes don't want to be looking at these computer screens all day or under fluorescent lighting. And so those are simple things that you can start to do just to improve your overall health.
Yeah.
It's easy.
Well, you mentioned melatonin there, which is interesting, because melatonin in the UK is a prescription only medicine.
Oh,
and I think in the US, it's a dietary supplement.
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to have a prescription here.
Okay, so is that something that you recommend often?
Yes, we recommend a lot of melatonin. Do
Yeah.
you write scripts for it, or?
We haven't done before actually, but typically in the UK, it's usually prescribed if someone is traveling a lot and they get jet lag.
Yes.
A lot of our gentlemen do end up ordering it from mainland Europe or from the US
Okay.
because you can buy it easily
Yes.
and
Yeah.
cheaper than if it was a prescription.
What milligram do you guys have over there?
10.
10. Okay. I guess ours varies. I think we have 1, 5, 10. We have all different ranges available over the counter.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting one. Yeah, with it being so different as well on different
Yes.
sides of the world.
Yes. And do you guys prescribe peptides?
So peptides is a really interesting one. So over here, they're entirely categorized as research supplements.
Okay.
So they fall broadly into the same sort of category as SARMs. It isn't something that doctors will prescribe at the moment, but it is something that a lot of doctors are interested in. But I understand over in the States, you've had some changes in legislation over there recently, and compounding pharmacies is stopping.
Yeah, so there's definitely some regulation changes going on. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. They kind of just threw like a blanket statement out over majority of peptides, saying they were unsafe or don't have enough testing or whatever it may be. Some have been around for a long time. They're allowing compound pharmacies to still make stuff like Samorlin. I don't know if the peptide Samorlin, if you've heard of that, that's been around for a long time. But yeah, there's definitely some changes going on over here. But there's organizations like International Peptide Society or Dr. Seeds. He's a big peptide doctor. It sounds like that we're going to be able to enter patients into kind of like a research study to be able to provide feedback to the FDA to show that they're safe and provide some of these longer term studies, I guess, that they're looking for. But I think there was some being made that weren't FDA approved, and to stop compound pharmacies from doing that, they just wiped out majority of them, unfortunately. So hopefully we find our footing on what the right answer is there, and some of them can come back, because there are some really, really good peptides out there that we do not want to lose.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting though that the GLP-1 agonist semaglutide you mentioned earlier, they're all fine because they're making loads of money off selling those.
Yes, those are still fine, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with those, because I have been reading things where stocks are getting downgraded, like Krispy Kreme stock got downgraded because that's a donut shop here if you don't have them in the UK, but their stock got downgraded because less people are eating donuts because of semaglutide. And they're calling it the AI of disruptor of healthcare. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with lobbying and big pharma and the food industry and all these people as these worlds like clash, together. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the almighty dollar bill. And so we'll see who wins there. But I definitely think these GLPs could be it could be a roller coaster ride on what's to come with regulation, just because there's just a lot of money to be made and to be lost on multiple different industries.
I'm imagining now, big pharma going up against big food and wondering.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, think about the lobbying power both of those organizations have. And Krispy Kreme isn't going to start selling carrots. So yeah, what are they thinking behind the scenes? But I also read that medical companies such as Stryker, and I can't remember the other companies, less people needing knees and hips because they don't weigh as much, so people using less of those. So when they look about the financial impact that these weight loss drugs have across so many different industries, I just do not think those industries are going to sit around and be okay with that. I could be wrong, but it's just very interesting to read these articles coming out about the statistics on this.
Yeah, that is interesting. And there's other peptides coming out, isn't there? So there's like tirzepatide.
Yeah, so we have that already approved in the States, tirzepatide.
Right.
And
So that's
then
similar, works in a similar way.
yes, it just has another GLP or a GIP in it. So it's supposed to have a little bit better weight loss, about 20% of your body weight versus semaglutide is about 15%. So I think this category of medication is continuing to get better and continuing to prove more weight loss as these newer drugs are coming out. So this category isn't going anywhere. So we'll be interested to see now that they've kind of broke through here. There's a whole bunch of new ones in the works.
Yeah. So it's interesting here because, you know, it has come to the UK as well. And you've got a lot of people being quite negative about them. You know, it's taking away medication from diabetes sufferers, for instance. That's one angle that the media play on.
If the media has something bad to say, just assume that it's probably good. The reality is it's probably good, because I don't understand the media's play on this. Like they're demonizing it. They went from they're like now skinny shaming. They call it the rich skinny shot. They talk about the cost of it being more than what you actually can access it for. Then they want to talk about how you shouldn't get it from compound pharmacies. It's counterfeit. Well, they're talking about like one pharmacy, you know, God knows where, that no different than a fake designer purse, right? That made this stuff and somebody had an issue, but there's bad actors in all different areas. So it's like, but they want to cast this net on the whole industry, and it's simply, and scare people. And it's simply not true. I mean, this is one of the greatest breakthrough drugs of all times. Obesity is killing. It's the number one killer in both of our countries. Like it's time for it to come to an end, you know, for people to take control of their health and their weight. And I can't believe how big of a problem the media has with it. It's really quite a shame.
The media are never happier though, unless they're making us scared about something.
Yes.
Fear sells.
Yes.
I think that's what it boils down to.
Yes. They love the theatrics of it all. So I feel like during COVID, people are starting to see through that more, you know, that they are starting to make more decisions for themselves and not just believe what they hear on the nightly news or in the headline on, you know, some social media clip, and they don't even open the article to read it, and realizing that you have to take control of your own healthcare. You can't rely on the government or the media or somebody else to do it for you. At the end of the day, it's your decision.
Yeah, it's been amazing how many times over the last few years, you know, someone just said, "Oh, because the telly told me so."
Yes.
Well, if the telly told you to jump off a cliff because that was good for you, would you do that too?
Yeah. Probably
no,
not.
maybe not.
Probably not.
The GLP-1s are interesting as well over here. That, you know, again, we've got the media sort of saying, you know, all of the weight loss is just muscle. It's really bad for you.
Oh, that one fires us up over here. Because that is
Yeah.
not true. We have a body composition scale, and you can absolutely do these GLPs and not lose any muscle, actually put on muscle. The people that are losing muscle are probably at one of these other clinics that we just talked about that are special, you know, specializing in all these different things, expert in none. Because if you do semaglutide right, you will not lose muscle mass.
Yeah.
Maybe the first couple weeks, and you will then turn it around and put it right back on. So our scale follows that, the muscle mass and your weight and how much water weight you are holding, all of that. And it's a phenomenal tool. And I really recommend, if you are prescribing semaglutide, that you have scales like this, because you can absolutely prescribe it without losing muscle mass.
Yeah. And of course, one of the really important parts of that is you're talking to them about exercise as well.
Exercise and diet. Yes. It opens the conversation. You're not just prescribing it to make a quick buck. You're going to sit down and come up with a meal plan and talk. We offer the meal plans to them, and we talk about their protein intake and their lifestyle choices and their exercise. Absolutely. So we have somebody dedicated specifically to that. You know, our providers do it. And then we have a designated person for follow-ups that collaborates with our providers to make sure that the patients get the absolute best result. We are not celebrating somebody's weight loss if it is being lost in the form of muscle. Like, you have a conversation, like, you will not continue to be prescribed this if you are losing muscle mass. Muscle mass is the key to longevity. You have to have muscle mass as you age. It's the most important organ, you know, that we have to maintain, I feel like, as we age. So it is critical. Feel like I'm harping on this. You do not want to lose muscle mass for the sake of just losing weight.
Yeah, it's, as you say, it's the strongest correlator to living a long, healthy
Correct.
life.
Correct.
Yeah. I love the fact there then. So did you just say that if someone was losing muscle mass, you would no longer prescribe to them?
Correct.
That's amazing.
Correct. Yep. So, and I know we're Victory Men's Health, but we do have some men who have their spouses that see us. And it's more so in the women that just want to be okay with just losing weight. You know, they get on the scale, oh, yeah, great, I lost 10 pounds, you know, and it's like, you know, half of it's muscle. You're like, no, this isn't going to work. And we make them because you can turn it around quick, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, within a couple weeks, you can get that on. So we have the conversation again about the protein intake. We make sure they're hitting their protein goals and their weights and get them to turn it around, or they're not going to be able to be prescribed the medication.
Brilliant. I really like that. It's a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah. And it works really well. And I mean, we do a pretty good job at posting them on our social media, but we post scale after scale after scale on our social media to show, like, hello, semaglutide patient, not losing muscle, like making sure that the people that are following us that aren't necessarily aren't a patient or live out of state or out of the country know, like, okay, you know, if I'm on this, I should not be losing muscle either. Like, I need to maintain and gain the muscle. And then optimizing your hormones as a female and a male, once you add in that testosterone, you know, it makes it easier also to gain that muscle, since testosterone is a major contributor of that. So it all comes together nicely.
Yeah, absolutely. And all of that, you know, ties into becoming the best version of yourself that we talked about earlier.
Yes.
Where you're stepping into the optimal version of you, the best husband, the best father, they're all of those things.
And when they start to get some wins, like, people want instant gratification, right? You have to give them some quick wins. So when they're seeing their quick wins early on, next thing you know, they're like, it's interesting to see, like, a couple weeks later, they've lost 10, 50 pounds. They're like, oh, and I'm going to the gym more. And, oh, I'm meal prepping, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. So it just takes a little bit, those few small wins early on to start to change the mindset and for them to want to do that. Because I think for so long, people were going to the gym and seeing no results and then just quit. And it's easier just to order the pizza on the Sunday night and, oh, I'll try to circle back to that next week. Or hell, I went to the gym for 6 months straight. I never lost a single pound, never gained any muscle. You know, they kind of get into that rhythm of those excuses. So when you can break through that, it's amazing the lifestyle changes that can happen.
Yeah. Do you see big changes in confidence in your clients as well?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. You know, it's because we see such a big confident change. We're doing something fun that we're working on for the spring. We're going to do a matchmaking event with our guys. So we're going to be like, we're going to hold an event where we feature our men and we bring in these single women to get them back in the game. You know, they're feeling good about themselves. They've lost weight. You know, they're ready to date again, and maybe don't know how to do that or don't want to get on a dating app. So we're going to work to see if we can facilitate meeting some nice ladies for them. So we're looking forward to it.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, where are you going to find the ladies?
Well, so I'm friends with so many other people that own med spas, and, you know, that's primarily women. And then I'm partnered up with a doctor, internist, and a urologist that have a women's clinic. So we have Embody Her Health as well. So we have women that are single there, obviously. So between the med spas and Embody Her Health, we're going to be able to find enough women to come to this event. So you've
got like a whole new little side venture going on.
Yeah, we thought it would kind of be fun to do. So we're looking forward to it. We're going to like, you know, have these little banners made up of our men and kind of what they look like, what they do, facts about them, so the women can learn about them before they actually meet. So we got all sorts of stuff planned, but we're looking forward to it. We're primarily women that work in these clinics. So this is women like doing stuff like that. So my staff is super excited to organize an event like this. So help our guys out.
Yeah, the Victory's app where they're swiping left and right.
Yes, exactly. Maybe it leads to something more. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So how much do you, obviously we've got improved health, improved confidence. How much do you then see that sort of bleeds over into masculinity? Because this is a big topic as well that we sort of touched on a little bit earlier. Do you feel that men almost step back into their power? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. Like that kind of brings back maybe their assertiveness or their strength or their confidence, makes them better, at home. It makes them better at the workplace versus kind of like falling back, into the shadows. It makes them, come out in front again. And the reality is when men do that, they also end up making more money. They end up being more successful in their life. And what's interesting is I read an article about men care more about how much money they make than how they look, but they maybe forget that they're actually very correlated together. You have to feel and look a certain way for it to be able to translate into money. And so I think, taking care of yourself is really important. As a good example, look at like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk now, guys that have stepped out and have really started taking care of themselves. Like they look good. They've lost a lot of weight, but Jeff Bezos has put on a ton of muscle. Elon Musk has been transparent about taking Ozempic to lose weight. So yeah, I definitely think that it brings back that sense of confidence and masculinity.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel quite sorry we talk about this quite a lot on this channel, but I feel quite sorry for a lot of the younger men now, because the toxic and masculinity seem to be two words that have been somehow linked together.
Yeah, that's bullshit. Ooh,
yeah.
Can I cuss on this?
No, I totally agree.
Well, I have a podcast that's called Women Want Strong Men is the name of the podcast. And I didn't mean for it to be controversial whenever I came up with the name. I came up with the name because that's what I believe. And the podcast represents me and kind of my journey. But, it did ruffle some feathers whenever I did, I guess I didn't hit enough pronouns in the title, but I do believe that women want strong men. And we are seeing today men become weaker. And I think it's the weak men that prey among women, or that, have mental health issues and that have some of these things that they're dealing with. And to become strong, you have to take care of yourself. You have to put in the work. You have to want to optimize your hormones. And women, that's what at the end of the day women want. And if this generation of these younger men continue to be weaker and weaker and weaker, the women are going to overpower them, and they're never going to be able to step out of their masculinity because they don't have a man in their life to pick up that area. Because at the end of the day, I think why women can be masculine and a-driving in work, when I come home from work, I do want a man to take care of me. I want a man in the house. But if a man doesn't rise up to that, I'll keep my big boy pants on that whole time. Right. So a woman has to feel secure in that to be able to let go of some of that masculinity and let the man step into that. And this toxic masculinity thing that got started however many years ago, I think around that hashtag Me Too movement is when I really started to become aware of it. I think that's BS. Like I said, I think it's the weak men that are praying and that are doing this. It's not the strong men. It's the men that don't have the masculinity. I always say, like, Harvey Weinstein, you think that guy is masculine? Are you kidding me? Like, take a look at him. That guy does not represent masculinity to me, nor does he represent toxic masculinity. That looks like a broken, fat, old, disgusting, unhealthy person to me. So, you know, that's kind of how I feel about it.
Yeah. Right. It's interesting hearing your perspective, obviously, as a lady, because most of our guests are often men when we're talking about this. So it's great to get that feedback. I think a couple of things to sort of unpick in there. I think a lot of younger men are scared to offend people. So,
True.
they're like, oh, I'm not going to open the door for someone because they're quite capable and a strong woman on her own. I'm not going to offer to pay for dinner because I don't want to be seen as, overly controlling and all of these things. So they kind of don't know what to do. Whereas
I think you're right.
I think a man should open the door and they should
Yes.
walk on the outside of the pavement and they should pay for dinner because it's just the way things are supposed to be. But I guess some people now are arguing the other way.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think, and I probably, whenever I was a little bit younger, I probably felt like I needed to prove that I could pay for it. Sit down with a guy like, well, I got this. I can handle myself. I'm going to pay. Now, fast forward, I'm, in my 30s, late 30s. Now I'm like, no, absolutely. Let the man pay. That's what he wants to do. Let the man open the door. So I just think it kind of got out of balance. And if you're, maybe a little bit younger as I was, you didn't recognize that it was out of balance. And I think that we absolutely can coexist wonderfully together. We don't have to prove ourselves. The man doesn't need to overcompensate to prove something to us, and us females don't need to overcompensate to prove something to them. Like we can both be great together. But I do notice that, and that probably needs to be a PSA to young ladies out there. Like, you should let somebody open the car door for you. You should let somebody pay for dinner if they want to. And the cover of my podcast art, I'm in these tights that have F's on them, which for me represents female. They're technically a brand, but for me the F is female. And I have an oversized blazer on me, like my husband's blazer over the top of me, for me symbolizing chivalry is still alive. I can still, while I'm strong and confident and driving and running my own company, my husband can still put his jacket over me and I'm going to accept it and want him to do that. And, that represents that to me. So just a little insight about my cover art, because I do think that women can be strong and still allow a masculine partner into their life.
Yeah, I love that, because it's when I open a door for my wife, it's not because I don't think she's capable, it's because I want to.
Yes.
Because you're kind of honoring that person. You're saying how important they are. It's not because she's feeble and weak. She's far from it. But you want to do that. And I think you said that there as well. I think that's a really important distinction.
Yes, absolutely. I feel like we need to do more public service announcements on that topic, because I have not been talking about that, but you're dead on with what you said there. I hadn't thought about that in a while, but you're exactly right there.
Do you think most women think the same as you? And it's a small minority that are making these waves and, obviously saying the things that are out there now?
Yeah, I do. I think so. At least that's the circles that I run in, or the people that work here at Victory. Yeah, I would say that we're aligned in our thought process there. I think it's, the noise and the media and the press, no different than we talked about, how they talk about Ozempic or compound pharmacies, peptides. You get lost in the noise and you start to believe that's how everybody thinks. But the reality is, Hollywood, LA is not the whole country, but we get lost in that whenever it's a public figure speaking on it, or a high profile person speaking on it, and they can lead them. They can, have major social influence. But I think in general, most women want to have a career and be strong and have their own thing, but also want a man that will take care of them when they get home, whether that's emotionally, financially, whatever it is, but they still want to be able to have their own thing and be confident and stuff as well.
I guess if you, just as you were talking there, I was kind of thinking through, I guess if you verbalize what we're saying, you know, which we are, but if you asked a lady, what would you like, A or B? A weak, overweight, unhealthy, unconfident man who makes you pay for everything and never pulls back your chair, or would you like a fit, healthy, strong, confident gentleman that opens the door for you? Which one are they good?
The strong, confident woman that makes a lot of money and can pay for everything is not with a guy like that. You know, they don't, because they don't find a guy like that attractive. If they really stopped and asked themselves, like, if you're this, you know, woman running through life, ball busting it, you know, like you don't find that somebody like that attractive, that's overweight and lazy and can't pay the bills. And so that's why it's like, if you slow down and think about it, that's not really what they want either, you know? So it just gets, I think, maybe lost in translation.
Yeah, I agree. We could probably talk about this all day, Amy, and I've really enjoyed our conversation. But for anyone who's listening, how do they find you? What's your podcast called again? What are the clinics called? Where are they based? We're going to put all the links, obviously, when this goes out, but if you just want to leave a few words, that'd be great.
Yeah. So the clinics are called Victory Men's Health, and they're in the United States and the Midwest. And then you can find us on Instagram just by Victory Men's Health. And then my podcast is called Women Want Strong Men. And we also have a women's clinic, like I mentioned, called Embody Her Health. We have a telehealth company that just does PDE5s like Viagra, Cialis, Levitra, called Victory RX. My personal Instagram is called something Stuttle, because I didn't want people to be able to find me at first. But I should probably change that now and actually put my real name on there. But yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate your time today.
Oh, I've really enjoyed it. Enjoy the rest of your day and speak soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Alphagenix Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss next week's episode. For more resources on Alphagenix and men's health, visit alphagenix.co.uk. Until next time.